Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome back to Characters Explained, a series where I cover characters from the game Battle for Neighborville. And in today's video, we're going to cover one of BFN's most oppressive characters once again, that being All-Star. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So, All-Star is a veteran of this franchise. He's been here since the days of PVZ 1, and he's pretty consistently kept up appearances in most of the other titles. His gimmick has changed a bit, but generally, he is a tanky zombie who happens to specialize in sports. I mean, just look at what he does in PVZ 2. He tackles plants, but also throws an explosive imp. If that isn't worth a 10 million brain salary, then I don't know what is. But that's his basic background. Let's cover his stats next. All-Star has 200 HP and BFN, which makes him one of the tankiest characters in the game. And his primary, the football cannon, deals 7 damage per shot, with the critical damage being 8.4. He has no reload, but rather a cooldown system where too many shots in a row makes his weapon overheat. I don't remember the exact amount of shots, but I'm assuming it's somewhere around the 50 range. Oh, and his rate of fire is 570. Now, we're actually not done with this primary, surprisingly. There's one more thing to mention here, and that's the movement. Using this primary forces you to slow down if you're moving, and it also needs some time to prime up before you shoot. But if you ADS, you can shoot as much as you please, and yeah, that's really the only way to avoid that. So yeah, All-Star's primary is good, but he's limited by his movement as a result of that. Now, with that being said, we'll next cover his abilities, starting with Imp Hunt. Yeah, you remember a minute ago how I mentioned this little guy? Well, he also happens to be an ability in this game. Here, the Imp Hunt kind of works like a beam bomb, only it deals 100 damage on impact instead of being a bomb with a waiting period. This allows All-Star to deal with opponents that get in his range pretty effectively. It's overall pretty good. Next up is Sprint Tackle, which propels All-Star forward, allowing him to cross gaps and close any distance he has with the enemy. The ability itself does 75 damage to anyone it hits, and honestly, there's not much more to it than that. The only thing you really gotta worry about here is the janky hit detection, but otherwise, this ability is solid. Finally, we have the Dummy Shield, which lets All-Star essentially place down a Winston dome around himself. The dome is mostly static, with it only moving if it's on a payload. The shield has 300 HP, with the dummy inside being the weak point only having 25. Also, it only stays on the field for 14 seconds. Finally, if either the shield or the dummy break, then the entire thing comes crumbling down. Now, this is all pretty cool stuff, but when you start comparing it to Citron's shield, yeah, it's hard to get very excited over this. Still good though. So that is All-Star's basic kit. Overall, he's a very powerful character, and I guess PopCap didn't know that because now we're going to cover his upgrades, which essentially make him stronger. So, All-Star's upgrades are pretty interesting for a few reasons. You'll see the majority of why that is when we cover most of them, but one thing I want to mention now is that All-Star is one of the only characters in this game where I feel like most of his upgrades are genuinely viable and worth running for their own individual reasons. And that's saying a lot, truly. So, with that being said, let's get into these upgrades, why don't we? First up are his base upgrades, and starting out here is Spin Class. This upgrade makes All-Star's primary, well, prime up faster. Much faster, actually. So much so that you are basically running a normal weapon. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. For 2 upgrade points, I gotta admit, this one is really hard to turn down. It makes playing All-Star much easier, and I think that alone should tell you all you really need to know about this upgrade. Next up is Tennis Skills, which is equally good for a different reason. This upgrade gives All-Star regular movement when his primary is being used. Actually, it makes his movement better than other characters, as he can walk at normal speed when his primary is primed up. PopCap, listen. Did you really think All-Star needed this? Yeah, needless to say, both Spin Class and Tennis Skills are used together very often, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. Both upgrades are really good. Next up, we have Supercharged Football Coolant, which is interesting. The idea behind this upgrade is that All-Star's primary loses built-up cooldown whenever he gets a Vanquish. The exact amount is 30% here, which is pretty fair. Now, this upgrade is pretty good for farming into campaigns and ops, but when you take it into multiplayer, Like, it's not bad, but it's frankly not something you need very often, at least in my experience. It's still good, but keep that in mind when you use it. The other upgrade falls under a similar dilemma, and it's called Applying Pressure. This upgrade is pretty neat, as it actually blinds any player getting hit by the football cannon. That's a super neat idea, and if it did anything else, it would honestly be really good. Yeah, this is the part where I tell you that it doesn't do anything else. The AI in this game completely ignores it too, so it's good, but only if you're actually fighting real people. Otherwise, don't even bother. Alright, now we'll move on to the ability upgrades, and first up is the Impunt ones. Long Bomb is first, and this upgrade increases the distance that Impunt travels. There's not much more to this one, but considering how high the skill ceiling is on Long Bomb in the Garden Warfare games, this ability is also good by proxy. Seriously, have you ever seen a good Long Bomb clip? It's really impressive stuff. The other upgrade here is also All-Star's most expensive, that being Huge Fuse. This upgrade does a couple of things, those being that Impunt now detonates immediately upon hitting an enemy, and it also happens to deal extra damage to those enemies it directly hits, up to 150 now. These are pretty crazy changes, but it's hard to justify using an ability upgrade for 4 points, so this one is up for debate on whether it's good or not. Next up are the Sprint Tackle upgrades, starting with Shoot the Gap. This upgrade increases the distance that your tackle goes. Now, this is both really good and really bad. It's good for movement, and if that's all you care about, then you'll love this upgrade. But if you want to use it for combat, this is where it gets iffy. One wrong move and you'll be launching yourself way further from the enemy than you would have before. I'd say this one is situationally good, but it's still good regardless. As for follow through, this upgrade reduces the cooldown on Sprint Tackle to basically 3 seconds whenever you earn a Vanquish with the ability, as well as knocking back opponents not vanquished by it further than normal. This one is also situationally good, but when it works, it really works. Highly recommend giving this one a shot. It's pretty fun once you get the ball rolling. Finally, we have the Dummy Shield upgrades, and these are a bit underwhelming, kind of. Injury time is first, and you revive teammates twice as quickly as you would normally inside the shield. Well, you know what they say, if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say it at all. The final upgrade here is Starstruck, which pushes enemies back who are near you when you place a dummy shield. Now, that's pretty alright, it can be useful in certain situations, but where this upgrade gets interesting is the cooldown reduction you get when you do knock someone back. Less than 3 seconds. Oh my god. Do I even need to say anything about this? If your goal is to annoy people, then this is gonna get it done. Absolutely disgusting. So that is all of All-Star's upgrades. And now you could probably see why I said that most of these upgrades are uniquely viable. They're all different in their own ways, but they're also pretty good. And with that being said, now we'll cover some example builds I made, so let's get into those. First up is my personal build, using tennis skills, shoot the gap, and spin class. Movement is my favorite thing to use with All-Star, and staying nimble on your toes as this guy is pretty worthwhile. Next up is a pressure build, using supercharged football coolant, applying pressure, and refreshing revive. If you're fighting real players, then this should keep them at bay in your fights, as they're gonna struggle even seeing you. Finally, we have a troll build using Starstruck, shoot the gap, and health regen. This build is annoying for quite a few reasons, and the best part about that is that you can interpret what I mean by that in any way that you see fit. So that is basically everything about All-Star covered. And with all of that being said, I think I'll wrap this video up by talking about how I feel about him. So, All-Star is, without question, one of the best characters in this game. He is immensely powerful, and the fact that he is so good that he directly outclasses certain characters like Foot Soldier makes him a dangerous foe. So if you run into a good All-Star player, then good luck out there. You'll need it. And with that, I'm going to end this video here. Thank you all so much for watching until the end, I really do appreciate it. This video is the final Characters Explained video of the month, so don't worry, you'll be getting some fresh content throughout the rest of the month here. Also, if you're new around here and you like what you saw, then maybe consider subscribing too. It helps me out a ton, and your support allows me to continue making these videos. Now, as for me, I'm gonna go ahead and mentally prepare for my BFN update history video, so I'll see you guys later. Peace.